Questions of Doom.
Hello and welcome back to another Questions of Doom. In this series, as ever, I attempt to answer questions that you send my way using the archaeosoup@gmail.com email address, as displayed on the YouTube channel homepage, but as you'll also see at the end of this video. In answering these questions by video, it is my fond hope that the answer is not only useful to the person who's asked the question, but also anyone else out there who may be wondering the same thing. Now, today's question is actually quite a funky one, and it should be a fairly short and sweet answer. The question is as follows. Dear Archaeosoup, I enjoy watching your videos, and I hope you'll be able to answer my question. Me too. Last week I was chatting with my 4-year-old daughter about her little sister's first tooth. Somewhere along the way she asked about braces, or retainers I suppose if you're from certain other countries, so the things that hold your teeth in place if you need them. And I began to wonder, did mankind always suffer from crooked teeth? And if so, did we always try to straighten them? Yours, Katharina. Well, Katharina, that's a very interesting question. I suppose in part because, first of all, there is that question of whether or not crooked teeth were always recognised in the past. For example, one imagines that in deep prehistory, teeth were teeth, and perhaps crookedness wasn't overly criticised. There is some evidence to show, in fact quite a lot of evidence to show, that actually people naturally find straightness in teeth and symmetry in the face very pleasing. But whether or not people would go, oh, look at those teeth, for example, in the Upper Paleolithic, who knows, who knows. But that's something which is definitely worthwhile thinking about. It's a question which I imagine most archaeologists don't really consider every day. So perhaps teeth and crookedness has always been a concern. But I suppose the one point in history where we start to see this stuff really coming to the fore is I suppose in the classical world. This is when people start to write down observations about each other, and also, for example, about medicine, about correcting things that go wrong with the body. And let's make no mistake, in that sense, crooked teeth, while sometimes painful, they are very much a cosmetic thing. So when I say wrong, I mean to say this is a choice someone is choosing, or our culture is choosing, that looks wrong, so we're going to try and fix it. And it's in the classical world, specifically in ancient Greece, where we start to see people talking about this. People like Hippocrates and Aristotle do contemplate ways to straighten teeth, and also other sort of conditions. And this is primarily really through pressure, just through sort of literally pushing on the tooth and massaging it into place, this kind of thing. So there are some early discussions about this around 300 to 400 BC, and really from there we start to see more and more evidence of people straightening teeth, or maybe even removing teeth in order to I suppose reinstall them in a straighter fashion. For example, there are cases where, say, catgut, the same stuff that's used for example, for violin strings, has been used to keep teeth in place in certain burials. I'm thinking here of, I believe, ancient Egypt, and also a couple of other situations. But obviously this is very rare to find, because catgut doesn't always last all that long. So in a drier country like Egypt, you're more likely to find evidence of catgut being used. There have been Roman burials found where metal, in this case actually gold wire, has been used to fix teeth in place by anchoring them to the teeth around them. Now you could argue that that's not actually tooth straightening, that's possibly tooth replacement. Maybe someone had their teeth knocked out, or maybe they lost them because they weren't very good at brushing their teeth. Incidentally, if your daughter can hear this or watch this, yes, brush your teeth. Definitely do that. That's very important. But yeah, so in this actually instance, maybe someone actually had a couple of their teeth, I think their front teeth, removed in order to straighten them, and then had them sort of resting in this wire setup in order to keep them straight, to keep them more pleasingly aligned with the rest of their mouth and face. The famous Roman doctor, or well, certainly doctor who is associated with Rome, Celsus, also writes about this sort of stuff. Again, manoeuvring teeth using pressure. But again, unfortunately, there's not really any evidence for it. For example, if it works, then the teeth are straight, and there's no evidence necessarily that someone has been pushing on them. It'd be hard actually to find physical evidence, I imagine, of this, again, this sort of manoeuvring of tooth using the fingers. So it's one of those things where we know people were thinking about it, but it's kind of hard to tie down in terms of archaeological evidence. It's really in the 18th century, so in the 1700s, that things really start to get going. So there's, for example, a French dentist called Pierre Fauchard, who is credited with, he's sort of called the father of modern orthodontics, and he published a book entitled The Surgeon Dentist on Methods of Straightening Teeth. Fauchard used a device called a bandeau, which was like a horseshoe-shaped piece of metal or iron, which would be put into the mouth to help expand the teeth into a pleasing sort of horseshoe shape. I suppose, broadly speaking, your teeth are in a horseshoe. So this piece of metal would be put into the mouth, and it would help to sort of shape the teeth from the inside out. So compared to, say, Celsus, who was pushing teeth from the outside in, this would be more of an inside out kind of alignment jobby that was going on. Later on, actually the King of France, he actually had a dentist, a personal dentist, and in 1754 this guy called Louis Baudet published a book called The Dentist's Art, and this was also important because in there was a whole chapter dedicated to tooth alignment, and also in this actually instance describing the removing of teeth. So if you've got maybe too many teeth, as some people describe it, but maybe if you've got like a molar or a premolar which is in the way and pushing other teeth into misalignment, he actually describes in 1754 removing a tooth so that the other teeth have room to be straight, they have room to grow nice and straight, and hopefully healthily. And it's really from that point onwards that we start to see dentistry as we'd all sort of recognise it. Some of the pioneers of dentistry, for example, were in the US. There's some fascinating photographs from the Wild West of dentists not only plying their trade, but also, it seems, learning how to do this stuff better. The use of rubber and elastic bands on these braces and retainers to aid their alignment, and you know, we've all seen the terrible photographs, or the terrible stereotypical photographs of children wearing these things, sometimes adults as well. But this is really when what we now think of as being braces and tooth alignment treatment really comes to the fore. So that's really after the 1700s, so into the 1800s, the 19th century, 20th century, and obviously now the 21st century. But I suppose specifically with regards to your question, has this always been a concern? It seems, for as far as we know, for example, in Europe, as far as we can tell, it has been a concern. There are records of some elements of tooth alignment, for example, from ancient China, and some people have talked about tooth alignment linked with, say, Mesoamerica, but often actually discussion surrounding teeth in those different places or in other parts of the world aren't specifically about alignment. They'll be to do with maybe filing teeth or removal of teeth or the adornment of teeth, perhaps adding jewellery to teeth. So it's actually quite hard to find a specific mention of what you were asking about, and that is tooth alignment, from outside the classical world, and certainly beyond that in time. So this has been an interesting question to try and research and answer. I've had to go to various sources and also ask a couple of friends for their opinion on this stuff. But hopefully this has gone some way to answering your questions. But crucially, so long as you look after your teeth and so long as you do your best to eat good foods, don't drink sort of acidy, fizzy drinks, this kind of thing, hopefully your teeth will grow nice and healthily anyway, and they shouldn't need too much prodding and poking and realigning. Anyway, once again, thank you so much, Katharina, for your question, but I suppose more to the point, for your daughter's question, and hopefully this has been useful and helpful. If anyone else out there has any comments or thoughts, in fact, if you know of alignment practices from other parts of the world which I haven't been able to come across, please do comment below, because not only I'm sure would Katharina like to know about it, but I would love to read about it too. Once again, thanks for the question, Katharina, and as ever, guys, until next time, whatever you're doing, do take care. Bye-bye.